Well, so there you go. The highlighting the certain scenarios or challenges, if you will, with electricity. We're joined this morning by O'Neil Lajuwomi, who is the CEO of Wavelength Integrated Power Services. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start off from some of the issues that were raised there. I mean, here we are again. Some of them are talking about the privatization process.
Yes.
And I know I've heard some people say, look, shouldn't we revisit this matter and see what can be done? But the ministers have said, look, if you go that route, we may not make any necessarily desired impact. What do you think about them talking about whether or not we should revisit it or it was not properly done?
Absolutely correct. I think what the minister has said was spot on. If we were to go back in time, and I will start with the privatization, which was the divestiture of the federal government about 3 years ago or so, fully from the 11 distribution companies. I read in the papers the assertions from the Senate President, Senator Bukola Saraki, where he spoke heavily on the fact that nothing is being done about the power sector, people are not talking, and the fact that there's no light in a nutshell. Well, if we were to go back in time, all right, rightly after it was privatized, I mean, issues were raised, all right? What the Senate President has said is absolutely spot on. I'm not trying to romance anybody or trying to, patronize anyone.
That those who don't know about the business are the ones who it was sold to?
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. I think it was just a jamboree, my own judgment was much of a jamboree. It's just much of a national cake. Okay. Let's share in it.
Assuming that were the case, without conceding, does that necessarily mean then that they can't get professionals to run it?
Tell you what happened was the people that bought their assets, all right, didn't do their due diligence, all right? It's more like you buying a container and someone telling you, look, at this container is filled with brand new cars, but they never really went to check the engines out properly, and this is where the problem has evolved from, all right? They're looking at the picture, looking at the money side of things without probably doing the due diligence from onset. The Nigerian power issue is a lot of, it's bedeviled with a lot of problems, all right? Right from the distribution to generation to transmission, there are major issues around there. So when you're looking at the Gencos buying power plants, which is mostly vested in the southern states of Nigeria, they never really envisaged the bombings and the uncertainty of the militancy in that region. That should have been taken into account.
That's for what the gas pipelines?
For the gas pipelines, exactly. And then looking at the distribution companies, you have the obsolete transmission lines. Right? It's no news.
I thought the minister said that they're improving this transmission capacity of the country now.
Well, it will interest you to know that Nigeria has a capacity, all right, to supply about 12,000 megawatts, all right? Transmission company, okay. 12,000 megawatts,
okay.
12,522 to be precise, all right, as at Q4 2016. Now, the transmission company of Nigeria did admit that they can only wheel out is supplying energy through the transmission lines to the end users, people like me and you, all right? They can only wheel about 7,000 megawatts. Now, statistics have shown that actually the TCN can only wheel out 5,500 megawatts. So what's happening, all right? We have 12,000 installed capacity, does not mean it's live, all right? Only about 7,000 of that is live, all right?
What about our generating capacity?
Generating capacity is 12,522.
So let's look at the major problem which you just talked about there, yes. Is the gas distribution network that it has.
Yes.
Especially in the South states where
yes,
some of the... Does it then make sense if we have to let these Gencos have individual gas reserves just so that they are able to have that amount of gas to power their stations?
Well, that would make absolute sense. But again, this is a matter of policy, all right? I think people keep, there's a misconception that Nigeria is a gas country, all right? Our gas are in scattered basins, all right? It's not like Russia, where you have them in just one basin, right? So
is that an advantage to us?
It's not an advantage really, because the cost to actually get the gas off first of all, our gas is associated gas, so which means it comes out when the oil is being drilled. all right? So the cost of getting out to the power line is enormous. And so therefore, like Gimba did mention, it's a good idea, all right? But the cost of doing so, is it worth it?
So what's the option now? One option that has been largely talked about is renewable or different technology to provide electricity for the people of this country.
Of course.
But the major concern that I see is that the affordability, for instance, for solar energy and for wind energy, how much is the government investing to encourage those alternatives?
All right, that brings me back to my other views on this, all right? And that's a good question. The government is actually doing a lot. You know, the right steps in the right direction in process, all right? In progress, rather. But most of the clamor has come from international agencies. We're talking about United Nations, industrial organizations, the IFCs, the World Banks, United Nations Human Rights for Refugee, all right? Those international organizations are the ones clamoring for this. Recently, just last month, a Bank of Industry announced a release of 1 billion naira to foster MSMEs and SMEs solar standalone systems. All right, that fund is out there. Obama fund, there's a $1 billion Obama fund sitting down just for Africa. Well, I don't know the current situation now that we have Donald Trump as president, but yeah, that was there. And unfortunately, we have yet to have many Nigerians tap into that. So funding is not a problem for renewable energy. And does it work? Yes, it works. Matter of fact, last year, Germany had to pay their customers to use electricity because there's so much amount of electricity in their transmission lines, transmitting to end users. And so therefore, like you said, the governments are doing the right thing in the right direction. But first things first, can we secure what we have? All right, that's the question. In the news this morning, the vice president is supposed to be in Niger Delta, all right, to make peace. Again, this is a good step in the right direction, all right. At first, when this issue of, when the new government came into power and it went after the militants, it's okay, but how do you go? Does it make sense for you to go into a China store? All right, you have a bull in a China store, and then you want to take the bull out by force. No. What will happen? All right, all the China wares in that store will, be broken. That's the result. That's what we had. That's what's actually happening in the Niger Delta, and that's why we've had lack of electricity. So for renewable energy, it's good steps in the right direction. There are things in the pipeline.
Yeah, on a scale of say 1 to 10, how much is it encouraged?
Encouraged?
Yes.
I'll say for now about 6. The issue, you have to understand that Nigeria, the awareness for renewable energy hasn't been there, all right? We've had bad experiences, all right? And people will tell you solar doesn't work because people have gone out to buy obsolete products in the past to install solar street lights. That will not work, all right? But solar, renewable energy, wind, hydro, they do work, all right? So I give about 6 to 10. A lot of work needs to be done, but gradually we'll get there.
When you say, when you say Germany paid for their residents or citizens to get electricity, what exactly did they do? Is there an example for us to follow there?
Yeah, of course. Germany has about 16% of its energy, the whole energy of the country coming out of renewable energy. I'm talking about solar, about wind. All right, they're very big in energy storage as well. So they harness energy and store and then distribute. All right.